On October 22, 2025, the night sky over Ukraine had barely turned black before the first hums began. From Kursk, Milarovo, Oryol, Primorsko-Akhtarsk, and Cape Chauda in occupied Crimea, waves of Russian drones lifted into the air. Shaheds, Gerberas, and several new variants still unconfirmed by analysts. By 10 p.m., radar operators in northern Ukraine were already watching blips multiply on their screens faster than they could count. Within minutes, the largest drone assault of the month was underway. Across cities like Sumy, Poltava, and Kharkiv, air defense sirens tore through the night, cutting across conversations and sleep alike. Ukrainian gunners scrambled to positions, floodlights slicing the sky while the mechanical swarm closed in. Russia had launched 130 drones in a single coordinated strike, 80 of them Shaheds. But by dawn, the scorecard told a different story. 92 taken out or jammed. Only 25 confirmed to have struck their targets. The Air Force called it a night of exhaustion and precision. A battle fought not in trenches, but in algorithms, radar sweeps, and quick reflexes. As the smoke lifted and daylight revealed the damage, one thing was clear. This wasn't just another drone wave. It was a stress test of Ukraine's entire air defense network. Let's walk through that night, moment by moment, as Ukraine faced down the swarm. The night of 22nd October 2025 began with a strange silence. In the northern skies above Sumy and Chernihiv, the air felt heavy, the kind of stillness that warns of something inbound. Ukrainian radar operators had been tracking faint signals since just after 9 p.m., but no one yet knew the full scale of what was coming. Within the hour, those faint signals would multiply into hundreds. By 9:30 p.m., operators in Kiev's Central Command Center began calling in confirmations. Unidentified aerial targets appeared simultaneously over multiple sectors: Kharkiv, Poltava, Dnipro, and Chernihiv. The trajectories were erratic, looping, weaving, and splitting apart. It wasn't one wave, it was 6, each launched from different points across Russia and occupied Crimea. Kursk, Milarovo, Shatalovo, Oryol, Primorsko-Akhtarsk, and Cape Chauda had gone live almost in unison. The largest came from Kursk. Over 30 Shahed-type drones flying low across the border, their engines producing a sound halfway between a buzz and a growl. By 9:45, air raid sirens echoed through the dark. Across Ukraine, millions of phones lit up with emergency alerts. In Poltava, residents rushed to stairwells. In Sumy, volunteers scrambled to help elderly civilians reach underground shelters. For soldiers crewing radar stations, the display screens bloomed with targets. Each red dot represented a drone heading straight for power substations, radar facilities, or fuel depots. Inside the Air Force's operations hub, controllers spoke in clipped, calm tones. Call signs filled the air: Falcon 1, Shield 2, Vega, Nomad. Coordination between anti-air units and mobile fire groups was everything. Ukraine's defense network was now a vast orchestra of movement. Fighter jets being scrambled, electronic warfare systems warming up, mobile Stinger teams positioning themselves on rooftops and highway overpasses. By 10 p.m., the first interception came from Chernihiv's sector, a MiG-29 pilot, guided by AWACS radar, locked onto a Shahed drone at low altitude and fired. The missile streaked across the night and detonated mid-air, scattering debris over an empty field. Seconds later, anti-aircraft guns near Sumy opened up. Their tracers formed glowing lines that slashed the sky. The sound was deafening, a mix of detonations, rotor hum, and radio chatter. Civilians described the night as one long tremor. Windows rattled as the drones crossed overhead. In Kiev's suburbs, the flash of interception rounds turned the horizon white for a moment, before fading back into darkness. Children clutched blankets in basements as parents checked Telegram channels, watching air defense updates in real time. Around 10:30 p.m., new reports came from the east. A massive cluster of Gerbera drones, smaller, faster, and more agile than the Shaheds, was approaching Poltava. These weren't typical Iranian-made models. Intelligence believed they were Russian-built variants modified for a more extended range. Electronic warfare crews switched frequencies, flooding the air with interference. Some drones began to drift off course, lose GPS signals, and crash into fields. Others pressed on, flying just 30 meters above ground, too low for radar to catch easily. By 11 p.m., the night sky was alive with activity. Ukrainian missile batteries along the Dnipro River fired in coordinated volleys. S-300S targeted high-altitude drones, while mobile fire groups used heavy machine guns against low-flying ones. The teamwork was remarkable. Soldiers from different brigades spoke over open channels, calling out bearings, confirming hits, adjusting their scopes by instinct and discipline. In Kharkiv, the situation grew intense. A power substation had been struck earlier that week, and this time, 3 drones seemed to be heading directly toward it again. A mobile anti-air team stationed on the city's outskirts intercepted 2 with manpads. The third slipped through. For a moment, it looked like it would make an impact. Then, out of nowhere, a Ukrainian FPV drone operator from the territorial defense launched his own craft, guiding it into the oncoming Shahed. The collision happened at such speed that both exploded mid-air, lighting up the horizon in an orange flash. Midnight struck with no sign of slowing. The attack had been underway for over 3 hours, yet Russian control systems were still feeding fresh coordinates. Ukraine's airspace was filled with moving heat signatures. Reports said over 100 drones had already crossed the border, but air defense had managed to neutralize or jam more than half of them. For many soldiers, it was no longer about counting. It was about surviving the night. Shortly after midnight, drone debris began falling over multiple regions. In Sumy, fragments crashed onto a storage yard, setting vehicles ablaze. In Kyiv Oblast, debris pierced rooftops, but caused no casualties. Firefighters raced from one call to the next. "We're fighting fires from the sky," one responder later said. "They burn like fuel bombs." At 12:30 a.m., the Air Force Command Center updated the map. 92 drones taken out or jammed. 11 confirmed impacts. The numbers sounded impressive, but the attacks hadn't stopped. Somewhere above Poltava, new heat signatures appeared. Russian forces were sending more waves from Militopia and Oriol. It was clear this wasn't just a tactical strike. It was pressure, a test of endurance. Ukrainian analysts watching live feeds from drone interception units noted something new. The Shahed drones were flying in tighter formations, designed to confuse radar. It was swarm logic, one drone drawing fire so others could slip through. In response, Ukrainian units adjusted targeting patterns. Instead of chasing each drone, they aimed at the densest clusters, using proximity detonations to take out several at once. By 1 a.m., the sky over Kharkiv was a web of lights. Anti-aircraft tracers, missiles, and outbursts painted a grim fireworks display. Civilians recorded the spectacle from balconies, the hum of engines audible over the crackle of gunfire. "It looked like the world was ending," one resident later said. Inside mobile command trucks, soldiers were drenched in sweat. The electronic warfare teams, often the invisible heroes, kept rotating frequencies, blocking enemy control channels. Every time a drone veered off course or went silent, a quiet cheer echoed across the comms. Those weren't just machines, they were lives saved. By 2 a.m., Ukraine's air defense network had effectively turned into a living machine. Radar data flowed instantly to firing units. Fighter pilots communicated directly with EW operators, and mobile groups moved like shadows through city streets, setting up, firing, then relocating before the next wave arrived. The system had been refined over months of war, and tonight it proved its worth. Still, the cost was visible. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, one drone broke through and struck a warehouse. The burst sent a shockwave through nearby blocks. Power flickered. Emergency lights bathed the area in red. Yet even as firefighters worked, another interception team nearby brought down 2 more drones before they could reach their targets. By 3 a.m., fatigue set in. Crews rotated shifts, pilots refueled, and gunners reloaded ammunition. The radio lines were quieter now, not because the attack had ended, but because everyone had settled into a grim rhythm. The sky was still buzzing, though fewer drones remained active. Analysts estimated around 30 still in flight, mostly heading toward the eastern oblasts. At 3:30, one of the most dramatic interceptions of the night unfolded near Kropivnitsky. A Gerbera drone flying low across farmland was spotted by local volunteers using night vision scopes. They relayed its path to a nearby anti-aircraft unit, which fired seconds before it reached a small industrial site. The detonation tore through the darkness, scattering metal shards across the fields. The entire sequence lasted less than 20 seconds. By 4 a.m., the offensive had begun losing momentum. Many drones had run out of fuel or were neutralized by jamming. Ukrainian crews began tracking them as they spiraled harmlessly down, but no one relaxed. The Russians had a habit of sending final waves near dawn, using the first light to target key infrastructure. Commanders ordered everyone to remain on alert. At 5 a.m., faint light began to bleed across the horizon. The night had lasted forever, but the sound of distant engines still haunted the skies. Over Sumy, a few remaining drones tried to reach their objectives. Ukrainian mobile groups positioned near the border intercepted them using gunfire and small portable missiles. The sky crackled again, then went still. By 6 a.m., silence finally began to return. Smoke drifted from distant fields where drones had crashed. Firefighters moved through debris-strewn streets. Residents emerged cautiously from shelters, their faces pale but defiant. In cities like Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Chernihiv, people filmed the sunrise, knowing it meant they'd made it through another night of assault. The Air Force's morning report came in at 8:30 a.m. Out of 130 drones launched, 92 had been neutralized. 25 confirmed impacts across 11 locations. Debris scattered over another 11. Most of the strikes had targeted energy infrastructure, radar sites, and logistics centers, but the vast majority of missiles and drones had failed. Ukraine's layered defense held. Even as relief spread, the command center remained cautious. The final line of the morning briefing said it clearly: attack ongoing. That meant some drones were still circling, some operators still trying to regain control, and some regions still on high alert. The war didn't end with sunrise. It simply paused. When day entirely broke, investigators began cataloging the night's wreckage. Fields were littered with twisted drone remains, some bearing markings from Iran, others newly modified Russian frames. Technicians examined fragments to trace their electronics. Each wrecked drone was a data point, a clue to how Moscow's design was evolving. For Ukraine's defenders, the night of 22nd October wasn't just a battle, it was a stress test. It measured the strength of their air defense network, their ability to coordinate across dozens of cities, and their endurance against constant pressure. The result spoke for itself. 92 out of 130 were eliminated. That ratio wasn't luck. It was skill, discipline, and technology working in harmony. By afternoon, life began to return to normal. Power crews repaired lines, firefighters cleared debris, and journalists filmed smoking craters near Poltava. Civilians returned to markets and schools, though many did so with bags still packed in case of another alert. It's exhausting, one woman in Dnipro said, but we've learned to live between sirens. In Moscow, the operation was framed as a strategic success, though the losses suggested otherwise. Each Shahed and Gerbera drone cost thousands to produce, and losing 92 in a single night was an expensive failure. Analysts noted that the attack revealed desperation, Russia trying to saturate defenses through quantity rather than precision. In Kiev, however, morale climbed. For months, Ukraine had been warning its allies that it needed more radar systems, more missiles, and more jamming units. That night, they proved those investments mattered. Every soldier, technician, and operator had contributed to holding the line. As evening fell again on the 23rd of October, the sky over Ukraine looked deceptively calm. Yet beneath that calm, command centers buzzed quietly, preparing for whatever might come next. The war had taught one clear lesson. Nights like this were no longer exceptions. They were the new normal. And still, through exhaustion and uncertainty, Ukraine's defenders kept watch. They had survived the storm, and if it came again, they'd be ready. If you found this breakdown insightful and want more real-time analyses of the war's most defining moments, hit subscribe and stay tuned, because the night skies over Ukraine are still far from quiet.